Hello and welcome to Empires of Aether, our first virtually casted version of the game. And here we're testing a couple of new features that have not yet been seen by the general population here. We've got some new win conditions. And if you'll notice, you've got these little beads on the board. These are what we are calling star tiles. And if you own 3 of these star tiles at any point, that's a win condition. And then also, in addition to this, on the center line, we are going to consistently add 2 bosses on either end of the center line of tiles as well. So the win condition of defeating 2 boss tiles is much more realistic. And in this matchup, we've got a battle between Zach Nera, Josh Chodzi, my brother Chandler, and Staniel Blue Shadow Kazola. Now, each of these players do have at least 1 win under their belt. We've got Chodzi, Zeenairs, and Channy, each with multiple. And Stanny only playing a couple games. Only playing a few games. I believe this was his 4th game total. And he's only won 1 of those. So he is the least experienced here. But let's see how it plays out with our board. In our corners, it's fairly balanced. Except for, obviously, this corner down here is going to be at a disadvantage because 2 of the tiles adjacent to their capital are deserts and swamps, which there are certain nations that can obviously overcome that pretty readily. Some nations that, really, really like having those deserts or swamps nearby. So let's see what the players do. But that being said, I see a lot of lakes up here in the top right of our screen. And I've got a lot of mountains here in the bottom right. And we know that there's a lot of elements that really, really benefit from that. But also in this bottom left, a redeeming quality of it is that you've got 2 rainforests in their vicinity where everyone else only has 1. And then something else to look out for. Monsiles, the winged stallion, is a very, very weak health boss. Stheno the Gorgon is a very weak health boss as well. And so I think the player who picks this corner here, one of their strategies, you might want to go for a fairly strong early game nation because the pace of the game is much more accelerated due to these new win conditions. And being able to take out these bosses within the first few turns and then just gaining access to these star tiles, that's a pretty swift win. So let's see how it plays out. We've got all 4 players rolling their dice, and Zeenairs rolls the highest. Channy, my brother, rolls second. And then Justin and Chodzi are going to get to ban. And what they ban out right away, Justin's had some bad experience with the Nature Nation, so he gets rid of that. And then Chodzi goes ahead and takes out Fire as Zeenairs' favorite nation there. So everything else totally up for grabs here. And I think you've got a lot of options in terms of what can be strong in which corner, that sort of thing. But Zeenairs gets to bring it up, and Zeenairs gets to take this corner over here. And I really like it, this choice here, because it does a couple of things. One, you've got lots of food for the Lightning Nation and a good, healthy amount of building materials as well. But what this is also doing is I see the potential for water being over here as incredibly scary. And when we were playing this out last night, I was super surprised that Chodzi didn't ban water. Because I think there's a very strong potential that the first pick goes to the Water Nation. But Chodzi didn't ban water, which I was super surprised by. And so this is denying water in this corner, which is very, very powerful. I'm also concerned about the balance state of Waters River with the new design of the map with the quick access to multiple boss tiles and star tiles. So there's the potential that the river has to be completely reworked. But we'll see how it plays out in this game. So anyways, Lightning takes his top right corner, and I think it's absolutely an awesome choice. And then it goes to my brother Chandler, who is the second pick, and he takes the Earth Nation, going all the way down here to the bottom right, like so. And if you're going to play Earth, this is the obvious corner, right? Access to 3 mountains right away. You got the rainforest, and then, of course, the oasis on your side of the board. Really, really, really good for your resource totals. I really, really like the pick here. And then it goes to Chodzi, who does end up taking the Water Nation, so maybe he wasn't banning it because he wanted to play it. So either way, we are going to get a chance to see how the river plays out in this more accelerated game format, so we'll see how it goes. And then Justin Staniel Kazola, really trying to make this Blood Nation work here. He takes the Blood Nation, which is a slower nation in a slower corner of the board. So it's a bold choice, certainly a bold choice. If I'm stuck with this corner, I'm definitely picking something that is going to benefit from deserts or swamps, for example. Or at least something that can, gain a lot of extra ground on the map. Maybe I'm taking the Air Nation, something like that, or anything that can fortify any of these close tiles pretty readily. Or I can convert them to more friendly tiles. Perhaps I play Magma to convert them to volcanoes, but Poison benefits from swamps, Sand benefits from deserts, right? We haven't seen Sand played since their nerf to their movement in the early game. So that's where we have it in our corners. And so now we're going to scroll to see the abilities that they selected for and the builds and the likely strategies that they are going to pursue. So we're going to cover the abilities opted for the players in the reverse order in which they picked, because that's going to be their turn order. So it is going to be Justin who is going to be kicking off turn 1 here. And Blood, as we know, brand spanking new, the newest element added to this game, and is not 100% complete. Absolutely. And especially after this game, there's going to be some changes to it. And as we can see in their passive tile, they don't even have all their passives that we're going to equip them with. Yet, their strategy, very, very unique, very, very cool, and so obviously fun to play still. Admittedly, what I think is going to happen is their Blood Doping passive, which is their central ability, is going to be actually added to their passive card. And so they're going to see a little bit of help in the Tier 2 department. I do believe everything else is pretty set on what you need. Might be a little help in terms of castles and whatnot, and getting to place some free defensive fortifications there, because they are a slower nation. But that wasn't really an impact on this game, as we're going to come to see. So their abilities, they are what they are, right? We've got Universal Recipient, Universal Donor, helping us tide off the early game, although this is more typically used in Tier 2, where you want to be able to sacrifice a lot of troops to get that general powerful. But Transfusion and Universal Donor, absolutely great at accelerating to the mid-game, boosting my economy so that I can get that general supercharged up. And then, as we know everything else, hopefully you'll check out the Meet the Nations video. This is straightforward. There's no choices to be made here because Blood is so brand spanking new here. So now we jump into Chadzi's Water Nation build here, and if you've seen the footage of Chadzi in other videos that we have on our YouTube, Chadzi's a super tactical player. Really likes to go for that mid or late game nation here. And so let's see how he placed the river. I think it's probably his best option. Water, really, due to their Tier 3 ability that you're going to take almost every single game, they really want to hold on to a desert that's at least attainable in their corner. And so I really, really like, not taking the river to absorb up that desert, which normally wouldn't be a good tile, but water can get to the Tier 3 faster than practically any other element in the game. And then the other interesting point is that he did cover a lake that's directly adjacent to his capital, but he sees all these lakes on the northern coast, and so I believe he thinks he's going to be able to vie for that. Or maybe he just believes that the river is enough food for him, and he doesn't actually need to take advantage of the lake buffs that water receives from it. And then he also has great rainforest, great mountains access, and so water struggles in the building material department. And so when we get to Tier 2, placing the general on the mountains or the rainforest, he's going to be absolutely set there, and he can accomplish anything he's going here. So he's going for a very, very turtley Tier 1 build here. Flood to stall time. Big Pharma for that extra field resource building right here, directly adjacent to his capital. And then he's got Fertile Crescent. For when he gets to a lake, he can access a second resource building on there. So 2 different tiles that have extra resource buildings on them in the early game. And here's where the river, I think, is potentially problematic in the near future, to where maybe it needs to become a Tier 2 ability or something like that. We've got the river, which is going to automatically, absorb one of these beads here, automatically covers one of the star tiles. Not only that, but he can gain access to the middle line boss tile almost instantaneously, which is going to put pressure on this star tile that is not on his half of the board. And so we'll see how water plays out this game. I do see some problems in the near future that might cause some reworks. So something to definitely watch out for in these next few games and next few games that are posted onto YouTube. As for their Tier 2, Colin Navy, absolute staple. Fertile Footing, I believe, is an absolute staple. That being said, it might not be as good as it used to be now that feeding soldiers and building upkeep is not present in the game anymore. It's possible that you don't need this double output, but it's pretty hard to say no to. And then well-fed, we're going to see that water generates so much food that this is pretty juicy. And so you can have 1 barracks on the front line and then all of a sudden spawn a ton of troops. Something I didn't mention is one of the new win conditions is to just own 10 armies at any point in the game. Water is one of the few nations that I think can actually attain that pretty readily, and I think they can do it probably earlier than any other nation in the game. And then Tier 3, pretty standard here. The only one that's fairly flexible is this Water Rises. And nothing wrong with it, obviously. these two abilities are always going to take. Don't go chasing waterfalls as a way to eliminate any opponent built up land. So if they're manipulating tiles, you can get rid of what they wanted. And then the converting a desert to an oasis is an awesome late game mechanic that is going to help you surge into whatever final win condition you're going for, whether it's the 50-50 resources or you just need to buy some extra troops to finish your opponent off. Very, very solid. And then water rises, going to be excellent for adding some aggression. If you're facing some kind of turtling nation, water obviously doesn't have offensive bonuses, and so water rises is a way to kind of turn the tides there. Pretty solid. Got to respect all those choices. Now I get to my brother's build for the Earth Nation in this game. Remember, he's got quick access to 3 mountains here. So lots and lots of building materials and defensive bonuses he's going to be able to take advantage of, but also good access to food, and then, of course, a rainforest and oasis, which he might push for in the early game. So lots of really, really good positioning advantages that he can take up here, and so let's see what abilities. He got Construction Crew for free defensive fortifications. Defensive fortifications are already coming at a discounted rate, but in the early game, if you're going to position against an opponent, you want to spend building materials on expansion into territories. You don't want to have to spend building materials on purchasing those. So this is always a really good ability to take, but not necessary in every circumstance. Tectonic plates, I do think, is one that you do take in every single circumstance because it can be used defensively, objectively, or aggressively. And so really, really flexible, and you can use it in a variety of ways depending on how your opponent is going to stage their strategy. Then he also has the ability to turn any tile into a mountain tile. He's already got access to 3 free ones, but hey, what's one more, right? We could turn this desert, for example, in our corner into a mountain tile, so pretty solid. Tier 2, really, really solid ones as well. Summon Citadel, a pretty staple Tier 2 card. Brick by Brick, a pretty staple Tier 2 card. Bringing the house down, I really like this in particular against the Blood matchup because Blood's defensive fortifications are extra powerful, and so with only a few defensive fortifications on the board, I can take down pretty much all the defenses of the Blood Nation. So it's a pretty situational matchup, I would say. If he is on either side by an aggressive nation, it's not going to be too useful. Lightning's not building too many defensive fortifications, and so by bringing the house down, that's saying if I'm going to fight against someone, it's probably going to be Blood. But Earth, of course, wants to stick it out. I don't think you're going for the militaristic wins with Earth. I think you're probably going for the star tiles, perhaps boss victories, but also the 50-50 resources, how Earth is going to win. As for Tier 3, I always love seeing spare rooms being taken because you're going to have defensive fortifications on virtually every single tile that you own, along with resource buildings out the wazoo. So lots and lots of free soldiers here. Moving in is awesome. So once you're actually starting to go for those aggressive pushes, you can, once again, continue to fortify whatever you are taking, and you're getting a barracks or resource building on them. That's something that no other nation can do in the game. It's pretty solid there. And then She's a Brick House. Once again, situational matchup. If I'm going against Blood, it's very, very solid. Blood thinks they've got defenses, but if my general is coming at them in the Tier 3, they don't have any defenses at all. And then you might be saying, why didn't he take Terraforming? Terraforming is an awesome late-game card. That being said, it turns an entire row into mountains. Well, with the other cards that he has in the corner that he has, he's going to have guaranteed 4 mountains already, and so I don't think you need that much more, especially if Lightning does prove to not have that good of a defense. He can get over here where there's 2 other mountains, and so I don't think Terraforming is necessary whatsoever. The movement passive on it is great, but like I said, I think with the new win conditions, Earth isn't valuing movement as much. They're just valuing fortifying whatever they get control of. So now we have Znair's build on the Lightning Nation. Lightning has hit a bit of a struggle in recent matches here. It's super aggressive, right? But a lot of nations are hitting their mid-game a lot earlier, and so Lightning has actually been struggling to overcome that. They can get, 1 or 2 good attacks off, but they've been struggling at finishing. So let's see what Zach has done to try to overcome that. They have, because of changes to the mechanics of the game, every nation can now train up to 5 soldiers from a barracks per turn once they hit Tier 2. Lightning gets to do that earlier than anyone else. Their barracks and their capital can automatically train up to 5 soldiers per turn. Obviously, you have to pay for them, but still, you can make stronger pushes than other nations in the early game. The Tier 1, I think, is absolutely what he wants. You're always taking the 2 movement attack. And then Command Thunderstorm, it guarantees that there's going to be no bad weather event that comes your way. Whether it's buffing up your opponent or weakening your units or misfortune happens to your advantage card, something like that, you're guaranteeing that you're removing a certain RNG aspect of the game. And I think that's what its strongest capability is It's not even the buff. It's the fact that you know that a bad weather event is not coming for 2 turns. And so that's always great. Thunderclap, because we're going to be producing a lot of soldiers, and if we look at his corner, he's got so much food. And so what I would definitely prioritize is getting all these food tiles, training as many soldiers as I can, which Lightning already wants to do, and then Thunderclap my way into a mid-game building material push. I mean, you're obviously going to take the mountain and the rainforest when you can, in order to just, buff up the inherent resources that you're generating each turn, but Thunderclap is going to be a way to accelerate to that mid-game faster than you normally would be able to. Tier 2, if I'm going up against the Earth Nation and the Blood Nation, lots of defensive fortifications from this guy, strong defensive fortifications from this guy, then Thunderbolt I'm absolutely taking. It's not good in every matchup, but it's certainly strong here. Shocking Development, not sure if it's as strong as it used to be, based on the changes to the game, and perhaps it even needs to be changed to where the general can now train 5 soldiers per turn, that sort of thing. That would be an exceptionally strong buff if we were to change that. But it's just an awesome card, right? You're getting soldiers at a discounted rate. And then Blitzkrieg Warfare, an absolute must-take in every situation. Now with the changes to the game, I can get 2 armies for 10 food once I hit Tier 2. So that's pretty similar to other nations' Tier 2 pops, but because those barracks are sitting on 1 tile after that, especially if I get my general there, I could train 13 soldiers at a discounted rate from 1 tile. And that's pretty huge, especially when you're generating a lot of food from the tiles that you've acquired. And then we hit Tier 3. I love taking Cumulonimbus because Lightning doesn't have inherent map advantages here. That being said, Lightning doesn't want to win in Tier 3. You definitely want to stay in this Tier 1, Tier 2 range because your Tier 3 just simply isn't as strong as other abilities that are going to impact the board. They're definitely a more early game nation. So if we do happen to hit Tier 3, Never Strikes Twice is a way to finish off an opponent that's just really putting up a good fight. And so we can catch them off guard with that if we actually win a Tier 3 battle. And then Coulomb's Law and Cumulonimbus are a way to give us combat advantages. Pretty much every other nation in the game has combat advantages, but Lightning doesn't. You've got Command Thunderstorm for 2 turns that can impact that. You've got weather conditions in the deck that could, but who knows when those are going to come along. But it's not like the Water Nation who's getting extra defenses from lakes or the Earth Nation who's getting extra defenses from mountains. We don't have anything like that. And so Tier 3 is a way for us to help us maintain a standing in the game. Like I've said before in the Meet the Nation ability or the videos, Channeling Zeus is it's their coolest card, right? A ranged attack motion in Empires of Aether. Seems incredibly powerful, of course. It's not their best card, though. It simply isn't their best card. Most unique card, coolest card, but not their best card. And so I don't think it's what you want to take to win the game. And so we're going to see Lightning. Like I said, this Winged Stallion next to a super aggressive nation is something to watch out for. It's with a super low health total of only 20, right? That card is within the grasp of any aggressive nation. Water can even get a lot of troops out too. And so the ability to access this Winged Transport card is going to be absolutely pivotal for someone's early game strategy. And so let's see if the game progresses the way we predict it to go. And who are you saying is the winner right now? Is it going to be Justin, the newcomer, the Blood Nation in the bottom left? Chadsy, repeated winner, the most win totals in Empires of Aether history. The Water Nation, very tactical, perhaps overpowered Water Nation with the new iteration of the game. We'll see how it plays out. My brother Channy with several wins, usually playing a more bully-like nation on the more turtly Earth Nation. Or Xenares, who's amassed quite a few win totals in the last few weeks as well, playing the hyper-aggressive Lightning Nation. Go ahead and throw it down in the comments now who you think is going to win, and feel free to tune into the rest. This game is going to get wrapped up pretty quickly. And here we go, jumping into the action. Turn 1, everyone starting at 10-10, and Blue Shadow, a.k.a. Justin Cazzola, kicking it off with the Blood Nation. Let's walk you through. Cool thing about our virtual setup here is we're going to be able to continuously highlight every card that is drawn, every card that is played, and also we don't have to put the resources on the screen all the time. So we'll consistently pan over to the iPad so that you guys can see the changes that are taking place in each of the players' inventories. All right, Justin kicks it off, going into the swamp, purchasing that for 3 building materials. Goes ahead and also purchases a barracks on there. Very obviously trying to go for that rainforest there. This is... I think he should probably just go ahead and purchase the 2 cheap tiles right outside of him, and then he's got flexibility to move to either rainforest, depending on how water water positions on their river, and Earth is going to position against them. So who knows? So he does go to the desert. He's got the resources for it. See, you can see the 7 and 4 on the top of his screen there, and yet doesn't purchase it. Water, as you can see, Chaudzi in the early game struggling to figure out exactly which cards he's going for. There's a few clear choices with his board setup, but the exact details, he was struggling in the beginning. Obviously, before we officially start and before his turn kicks off, he figures out which cards he's actually going to use here. So going back to Blue Shadow's advantage card, he draws the You Thought advantage card, which is essentially a negate effect. A negate effect here. Draws it at the end of his turn, so he forgot to do it at the beginning, but no effect, obviously, because it's not an announced ability. So this is going to play into any early battles, any early incursions. If he's at a point where his castle is potentially destroyed by some advantage card, he can negate that. But the caveat to this one is this one can only be used in combat, which is interesting. There's another one that can negate any advantage card that's used against you. So this one not nearly as powerful, but still certainly good in the early game. Chaudzi draws his advantage card, figuring out that hand mechanic. Gets the Summon Home advantage card on here, which I think is one of the most powerful ones. That's the one that sends any nation's general back to their capital. In the early game, massive implications to this. So Chaudzi is going to opt for the good old Xenera Open, purchasing the mountain and then a barracks on his capital, which allows him to train a soldier, and then purchase the lake as well, purchasing both tiles adjacent to his capital. Could have also expanded into that lake that is, a little bit further on, which would be an interesting move, because I think if we know how Lightning is going to play out as a super aggressive nation, there's definitely some merits to advancing into territory that could soon be theirs so that we can fortify it within the first couple of turns. But he does opt for, these two tiles directly adjacent to his capital, which we know are all important, right? We absolutely have to purchase those tiles directly adjacent to us because we all know that there's certain effects that can impact that. Cheney draws the Friendly Fire advantage card, which is going to help him in any early battles there. So as we can see in the scoreboard over here, let me just scroll back just a second ago, right? We see Justin is only utilizing 3 food and 6 building materials in turn 1, and that is just, it's a weak move. You want to utilize as many of your resources as possible because that means you're only buying the minimum amount of land. If we can see just the sheer difference between Chaudzi's turn, and yes, I understand that Chaudzi's tiles that he can purchase are much more valuable than a desert and a swamp, but that being said, utilize the resource that you can so that you can build up that resource, that economy over time, or you can be flexible with the following turns. So Chaney goes to the field. We've got another opportunity for another good old Xenera Open. He goes to the field, purchases a barracks. Then with that barracks, he can purchase a soldier, and he can purchase any of these neighboring mountain tiles directly to him. And you're going to see... So he's decided to swap his soldiers are going to be the knights in this game. I love the virtual format because you can pick whatever characters you want for it. So his knights are the soldiers there. And notice what he does compared to what Chaudzi does. I like this move way better. Way more so, because I can then expand into this rainforest. Let's say Justin, for whatever reason, Blue Shadow can't purchase this rainforest the next turn. Earth can easily go to this tile the next turn, purchase it, and then potentially fortify it. Maybe not next turn, but maybe the turn following. But either way, Justin has already put himself in a position where he's not going to have as many resources over time as other players. So players 2 and 3 opt for the Xenera Open. And here we go. We follow it up with Xenera himself. Okay, Zach drawing his first advantage card of the game, gets the self-trading card, which is absolutely massive for the Lightning player because it really can help them swing. It's another thunderclap ability for them. So they can either exchange for food for BM or BM for food, either way, and that can allow them to accelerate into the mid-game. Xenera are already putting the coin on the lake, signifying that he's going to move his general there and purchase it. He also places a barracks on that lake, so it looks like we're going to have 3 instances of the classic Xenera opener, which is the efficient utilization of all 10 of your resources in turn 1. So Lightning not capitalizing on their passive, which is to be able to train soldiers from their capital in turn 1. There's certainly the potential of him just spamming soldiers and cruising down this lake line in the top. So we go to turn 2. We're going to see the resources updated here. We're going to see Justin is in the highest resource position, but obviously owns the least amount of tiles and is still currently generating the least amount of resources in the game. Everyone else, pretty standard. Yeah, Fire and Earth units have +1 on their dice roll for the next 2 turns. So if Earth finds themselves in a position where they can attack, which I don't think there's much potential for that, the only one he could potentially fight is Blood, but we'll see how Blood plays against this. So Earth doesn't want to see this, turn 1, but for at least the next couple of turns, he's a little bit stronger than he normally would be. Blood goes ahead and moves to that rainforest in the northern direction, but he also moved his general in the eastern direction to purchase that rainforest adjacent to the Earth Nation. So he purchases the rainforest and is able to purchase one of his more expensive castles on it, which costs 6 building materials, but they provide 30 defense and are passively generating him food. So that's very, very, very powerful. And then Blood is also going to go ahead and utilize his transfusion ability. This is what actually enabled him to purchase that castle, because after purchasing the rainforest, he's only at 4 and 2, and so he exchanges his remaining food for building materials to get that castle in place. I think he's feeling a little threatened by that summer weather event, even though Earth is not really in a position to mount, a strong force. I think as long as Blood keeps his general there, he's in a pretty strong position, but this almost guarantees that Earth's not coming in the next couple of turns. So it's definitely a good move. Blood also draws the Strong Resolve Advantage card. Units add +1 to their dice roll for this battle. Only works when you are defending. So obviously this is something he's going to keep close to his chest. His opponents don't know that he has this, and it's a very good card if he gets several soldiers. Water moving the general to the field, and then we'll see if they purchase as many river tiles as they can. That's probably what they want to do. He can't afford the rainforest. You can see his totals up here. He's at 6 and 5. He's at 6 food because lakes inherently generate them 1 extra food per turn. So I think he might have wanted to purchase that rainforest in the next turn. Maybe a little miscalculation there. But either way, I think the move is to probably purchase the river tiles. So Water puts a resource building on the mountain, which definitely a good move as well, because the rivers aren't going to cost him building materials. So he can still... would you look at this announce card that he draws at the beginning of his turn, getting 3 free soldiers and 5 food to his capital. Pretty huge for their early game. And that is also going to change what tiles he might want. Maybe instead of going for the cheaper river tiles, which he can get on pretty much any turn, he can go ahead and purchase maybe this lake that is to his east. He could also purchase this field. Remember, he's got those 2 tier 1 abilities that allow him to get extra resource buildings on them. Yep, so he opts to purchase that field now with that extra influx of food, sitting at 11 and 5. That puts him to 6 and 3, which still allows him to purchase that resource building on the mountain, and so that'll take him to 6 and 0. And so then he bought that field, and he can still purchase those 2 rivers. So pretty massive expansion turn for Water, and then not to mention the fact that these 2 river tiles that he's about to purchase, one of them is one of those new and pivotal star tiles. So he's already 1/3 of the way to a win condition. Earth gets the Force Roll combat card, which is going to help him in combat. So he's got 2 combat advantage cards here. So Earth not normally able to put much pressure in the early game in terms of military. He's got 2 combat cards that are going to help him there against his opponents. Sadly, none of them impact the general here, and that castle standing there by the Blood Nation is too much of a force for him to feasibly tackle in these next few turns, even with that summer weather ability working for him. He purchases an extra mountain with his general, who appears to be sleeping on the job. And that's all he's going to opt for. He's just going to purchase that mountain, nothing else, no need to do anything else. Doesn't really have the resource to purchase any other tile. And we go to Zach, turn 2, getting a fairly weak advantage card here that's going to boost his general strength in a battle, but in the early game, that can be absolutely crucial. Late game, a very weak card. Early game, a powerful card. He purchased simply the lake and a resource building on it, getting him some extra food, and that's the end of his turn. And so we're going to see our resource totals added up here. Weather event is going to stay in place because summer lasts for 2 turns. So you've got, it says Blue Shadow is at 10 and 6, and Chaudzi is at 12 and 7. So for whatever reason on my end, not updating right now, but it is updating for the players' ends. Purchases that mountain to his general, and you'll notice he still doesn't have these 2 tiles adjacent to his capital. He draws the Intercepting Cargo card, has to wait till the end of this turn to play it. The Intercepting Cargo card is going to steal resources from another nation. Oh, sorry, only purchases 1 soldier, actually, but still wants to move it to that desert. But doesn't move that soldier. Doesn't move that soldier to that desert. Water gets the Scholar of Architecture card, which is going to give him a discounted resource building. Pretty huge for them, especially considering their 2 tier 1 abilities, Fertile Crescent and Big Pharma. They can get extra resource buildings. Purchases this rainforest, definitely a good move here. And he goes ahead and pops that Scholar of Architecture, so he gets a free building material resource building on the rainforest. Or not a free, but for only one building material. Huge discounted rate, massive dividends. Trains 2 soldiers on his capital, sends one to the east for him on that mountain tile. Send in both on the mountain tile. And strangely positioning the general on the mountain, so his general has actually gone backwards in terms of land. I think he probably should have... Interesting. He could have moved to the desert towards the midpoint of the map, or he could have moved to that lake on the coastline. We can see his advantage card, so we know he doesn't have anything that is going to allow him to, move across the map or anything like that by teleporting from that tile. So kind of a strange positioning by his general there. Definitely would have moved to the desert with the general. We go to Channy, the Earth player, who draws the new Perspective Announce card. Forces 2 nations to give 1 advantage card. And I love this virtual mechanic. Just simply allows you to drag whatever card you want to get rid of to their hand. So Channy sees that Chadzi only has 1 card. Probably holding on to it for a reason he's hoping for. So he has no choice in the matter. And so that card goes to him. And it's the Summon Home advantage card. Meanwhile, Channy gives him the Friendly Fire card. So Channy sees that there's not much potential for him to utilize Friendly Fire in this early game, not appearing to be in too many skirmishes where there's going to be a lot of soldiers. Blood has purchased next to nothing, and the only one who's buying a lot of soldiers currently is Water, and Earth's across the map from them. So not seeing too much potential for that, so I think it's a solid choice. And he gets the Summon Home card, which is even more impactful for Earth. Definitely. Earth moves further north, approaching that Oasis tile, purchases that Rainforest. And we can see his resources. He's going to go down to 2 and 4 after this, and he gets a resource building on the rainforest. And he wants to do it for food. He knows he's got lots of mountains directly adjacent to his capital, so he's going to go ahead and get some extra food coming in from that rainforest tile. It looks like he's trying to position for that Oasis. I think it's a really good move. Lightning, because it's turn 3, gets to draw 2 advantage cards and pick which one they're keeping. Sadly, 2 cards of roughly the same effect. He's got Gain Intel, which he just gets to look at an advantage card of 1 enemy nation, or Force Gifting, which he's going to force the nation to give you one of their own advantage cards. I would definitely go for the Force Gifting here, because we're so early in the game, people don't have full hands of advantage cards, so there's no sense in really worrying about the overall total that someone has in their hand. General is moving to the mountain, purchases a barracks here, purchases 2 soldiers, pops the Command Thunderstorm ability, which is going to cancel out the effects of Summer and gives his soldiers an attack bonus here. So it looks like he's trying to stage an attack. Activates Fast as well, you know the rest. I think their most powerful Tier 1 card. This is going to allow his general and the units currently attached to him to move an extra tile. So his general already moved from the lake. He wanted to join that soldier that was currently on the mountain so he could train additional ones, and then it looks like he's going to attack this Pegasus tile. He does! And because of the weather event, he's done some math. Outside of his turn, he activates that Sharpened Steel advantage card that he had that adds 3 to his general's attack. He doesn't want any risk involved here. This is a guaranteed kill because even if he rolls a 1, that's going to put him at I believe a 21. The Stallion only has 20 health. He rolls the dice, though, and it's a 6 anyway. So it was certainly a guaranteed kill here. And the Pegasus is now his, which gives him access to a very, very powerful, not even advantage card, it's outside of his hand, the Wing Transport card, which is going to allow him to teleport to any unowned, unoccupied tile on the board, and then they can move again. So big potential for plays here, and everyone should look out and take inventory of what is on the map here. Okay, all the resources getting totaled up here. We see Zach going to 8 and 7, Channy going to 11 and 12, Chadzi 14 and 6, and Justin going to 9 and 14. He activates that Intercepting Cargo card, which is going to reduce the building material production from water. So I believe Chadzi was actually going to be at 14 and 11, but instead, Stanley was going to be at 9 and 9. That's why we're at 9 and 14 for blood and 14 and 6 for water. So water was producing a whole lot more, and blood feeling the pressure from water. Moves all of his soldiers to the mountain, which, as we said last turn, he wants to spread out and land, and so he moved just to join everything back on the mountain, as if Earth is going to pose some kind of threat to him. He also builds a castle on that rainforest tile. And we're seeing some definite newness to the strategy here. We already highlighted the wing transport card. These two tiles unoccupied directly adjacent to his capital. So let's see if the Lightning player sees it. So we think about what other people have done. People own a lot more land than Blood. Lightning doesn't own necessarily that much more land, but has killed a boss tile. Earth is positioning for the Oasis. And what has Blood spent a lot of their time doing? Well, they've spent a total of now 12 building materials on fortifying stuff that I don't really think was in a position of threat. He's really overvalued these rainforest tiles, which if he just purchases the desert on turn 1 and potentially the field on turn 2, he's still generating a good amount of resources to where he can fortify, purchase more soldiers, and perhaps expand to compete with other nations. So water, a huge economic turn. Big boom here. Buys a resource building for the field and the lake and pops both of their tier 1 abilities. Big Pharma and Fertile Crescent here. So now he's netting a huge amount of food, which of course is a specialty of water. So let's see what they plan on doing with all that food. Xenares has now pointed out that Justin is inevitably dead. So yes, Lightning does see the potential for the wing transport card being utilized here. And so if there isn't a combat advantage card that's going to be interfering with Lightning's plays here, Lightning has already declared, I'm flying to the field or the desert. So after Water has ended their turn and Blood has ended their turn, so they obviously can't make changes to their plays, Lightning says, I'm making my move. So a little bit of trash talk here at the table. He's also pointing out that before Earth makes her move, so this is a little premature on this, but Earth also has an unexposed or an exposed tile to their capital. So really he could kill Earth or Blood here. But I love the potential of killing the nation across the map from you. That's a very rare occurrence in this game. Love this trash talk though. Water trains the 3 soldiers to end their turn, sends them down the river. Actually, no, joins them on the mountain to form the first army of the game. And it goes to Channy, the Earth player, who draws his advantage card. Who gets Draft to War, purchasing 5 soldiers from one of their barracks per turn. And at Tier 1, this is pretty powerful. So yes, he does opt to go purchase the Oasis. So if there's a chance that... And I think this is the play. Everyone else has big potential for plays. Water is massing huge amount of forces so that they can pose some kind of threat to the bosses, potentially the star tiles. Lightning is obviously about to take Blood out of the game. So Earth needs to make some sort of power play. But the thing is that Earth is vulnerable to Lightning taking them out. But I do think that this is probably the correct play. You got to go for something big to compete with the other 2 nations that are also doing something big. So you're just going to have to hope that Lightning is gunning for Blood, which he has openly declared. So a little bit of confidence gained from that. Oh, never mind. He opts to put the construction crew on the capital. And so this does make it a little bit harder for Lightning to take him out of the game. So this is definitely a safe play. He sees no potential to lose his Oasis, so that's totally fine. And he's going to get an extra boost to his economy. So we see Water, huge economy. Earth, huge economy with that Oasis. Let's see if we can make it to that mid-game to make an even bigger play. Oh, the insult to injury. Zach is going to proc that Force Gifting ability that he gained last turn from drawing from the advantage pile to remove any advantage card from Blood. And oh my goodness, just to boost his chances. Draws an extra advantage card here, Vegetarian Vegan, which allows him to train extra soldiers for building materials this turn. I don't think he's going to need it. Blood only has 1 advantage card in the hand, and it doesn't help him here. 2 advantage cards in the hand, but it doesn't appear that any of them are going to help him here. Blood is an exposed capital tile, so it only has a defense of 5. If Blood doesn't have an advantage card that impacts the general, then all Lightning has to do is send his general to the desert or the field and take them out. Purchases that desert, which is a star tile. This is a star tile that I think Water should have owned a couple turns ago, if you'll recall that. So giving Lightning the opportunity to buy a super cheap star tile when he's about to have another win condition it could be the mistake. Go ahead and sends 1 soldier to this Rainforest, obviously positioning to purchase a second star tile here next turn. It is a little more expensive. Lightning hasn't invested so much into their economy, but they're about to gain an extra capital tile, which is going to help them. Activating that wing transport, simply sends his general. A general and a soldier. So he's hoping that Blood's final advantage cards don't turn the tides of this battle. And of course, Blood understands that there is no hope here because the advantage cards do not impact the General. The General is a guaranteed kill on Blood here. That is a fierce swing of his sword, stabbing straight into the heart of the Blood Nation. And Blood is eliminated. A very swift win condition gathered by Lightning. But can Water and Earth interfere with his acquisition of 2 more star tiles? Which it looks like that's what he's trying to position for. Everyone getting paid. Only 3 resource totals need to be updated. Zach's got a lot of food. It appears to be 16 and 10. Channy's got 15 and 16. Huge economy. And let's see Chauzy's food. 26 and 11. Absolutely massive. Could go tier 2. Both Earth and Water can. And let's see if there's a potential for them to interfere with the win conditions. And holy moly, a little bit of scripting here. Celestial alignment. The planets have aligned, preventing the activation of elemental abilities this turn, which is definitely going to dissuade the players from going to tier 2 because they wouldn't be able to utilize any of their game-changing abilities anyway. That is devastating. Absolutely devastating. And so now all Zach has to do is essentially position himself in a way to purchase 2 star tiles. He can purchase that rainforest next turn already. He's got the resources to purchase the rainforest. Can he get troops over to that swamp tile, though? So let's see if Water can interfere with this. Positioning his army and his general on that field. So if you'll recall, the general was there a couple turns ago. He moved back for the general to do nothing and then moved back to the field. So it's definitely some wasted real estate. And like we said, we wanted to purchase that star tile, but because of Celestial Alignment, Water wanted to go tier 2, wanted to pop Call in the Navy, but doesn't get to do it because Celestial Alignment is in play. So massive, massive impact on Water's play here, and I don't think they can interfere with Lightning here. Buys the final river tile. Positions for a second army at the end of the river. So Water's got the most impressive force on the board, the strongest economy on the board, and yet it does appear that they will not be the victors of this game by current standing. I'm wondering, with Celestial Alignment, what abilities he could have, or without Celestial Alignment, what abilities he could have popped in order to improve his standing in the game or interfere with Water, or interfere with Lightning's position on those star tiles. Channy draws the advantage card, probably the most powerful advantage card in the game, the Friendly Dragon. I don't see much potential for it to be used here. He's got the resources to pop it immediately. If anything, what Earth probably wants to do is take this rainforest away from Lightning, and then I don't think they can win the next turn. So let's see if Earth does the correct play here. Like we just said, Lightning has, out of the 3 players remaining, has the weakest economy. Yes, the closest to winning right now, but the weakest economy. And so if Earth can interfere with Lightning's plays, Earth or Water is in just as good of a chance to win this game. So yeah, because Lightning doesn't own this rainforest, he can attack it pretty handily with this general. But he goes ahead and fortifies the oasis instead. Doesn't appear to be wanting to move out and aggress upon that singular soldier there. It would be a general versus a soldier. Considering if there's no advantage cards utilized, the general would win. Doesn't attack, though, which means Lightning does have the ability to purchase the rainforest. Let's see how they get to that swamp if he's able to. Gets the to the front advantage card, able to purchase an army at a discounted rate. However, don't think it's going to be utilized here. Yes, and one of his advantage cards from earlier this game comes into play, the self-trading card, allowing him to trade an excess of food that he has for building materials, which he's going to need if he wants to train a guy from his capital, go to the forest, which is a very, very cheap tile, purchase it, build a barracks there, train another soldier, and go to the swamp. So he's doing the math in his head, calculates exactly how much food he needs to exchange to purchase a soldier and interfere with that swamp. But you'll see if Earth interfered with this rainforest here, Lightning doesn't win this turn, and I'm not really sure what their next win condition could be. Maybe in a few turns he could get his way into owning 3 star tiles simultaneously. But I think Earth could have interfered with it for sure. Confirming the numbers, activates that self-trading. So he exchanges 5 food for BM there, putting him to 7 and 9, which gives him enough to purchase a soldier from home, go to the forest, purchase a soldier from there, purchase the swamp, and win the game. So, does so by killing one boss, eliminating a nation, and owning 3 star tiles. And there you have it, a turn 5 victory in total. These new win conditions absolutely accelerate the game, but please let me know what you think. Does it accelerate it too much? Does it give aggressive nations too much of an upper hand? Like we said, there was potential for Earth to interfere with this final play here. Water, I believe if Celestial Alignment wasn't in play, the turn is completely different, and perhaps water can impose some kind of threat onto this desert tile. But we also saw a couple turns earlier, water could have owned this desert tile, fortified it, and then where does lightning get their second win condition in these next couple of turns? I think that would give earth and water time to accelerate to their mid game, and then yes, Lightning's got a win condition, but Earth and Water are by far the strongest nations on the board in terms of their economy. So, Zach did make a comment at the end of this game. He said, if I didn't win that turn, I don't think I win this game. And I completely agree. So I think if either of the other two players, Chaudzi or Channy, interfere with his play in that final turn, then Xenares doesn't come out on top here. But obviously taking advantage of the openings that present themselves with, and we've got another Xenares victory. Well, let me know what you think in the comments. Did you guess right? Did it play out the way that you thought it would? Here we go. I am excited for what we are going to make. It's looking real pretty out here in Aetherland. That's too cheesy of a name. We'll have to work on that. See you later.